Hey everyone, welcome to Positive Conversations with David and Donna. I'm David.
I'm Donna.
And last week we ended the show talking about the horrible news article I read about children getting pepper sprayed at school for extra credit, which I had to look up after the show to confirm to myself and to Donna, yep, this actually did happen. And that led us into a conversation about school stress and the pressures that are put on you. And I think I mentioned on the show, it was either on or off the show, that the average high school student has the same brain patterns as a mental patient from the 50s. Yeah, something like that. And so you being a teacher for 30 plus years, you obviously seen a lot of that. And I think you have a lot to say about student pressure. And
Yes.
you've always been very open with your opinions about the school system and how things work and the way that you try to do things a little differently as a teacher. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I've always said from the start, well, what do you want to do to stay creative? And I said, I want to turn the world into your classroom, because your classroom has always been a place where those pressures don't really apply all of the time.
Oh, that's so sweet. That makes me very happy. So, as a person who's taught electives and core curriculum, I will share that when I have to teach, not when I have to, but when I teach English, the way that I have had to teach English has changed through the years. And for the first time in 30 years, I'm not teaching English at all this year. And one of the reasons I chose to take the elective that was offered to me was because I was just feeling overwhelmed by the amount of pressure I was feeling. Like, you have to cover the curriculum this way. Every English teacher in your grade area has to give this test. You have to prepare them for this particular standardized test. And the scores from the kids' tests will reflect on you. It's part of your evaluation, which I've always disagreed with. I honestly feel like it's like telling a doctor he's a good or bad, or she's a good or bad doctor because of the number of people who die under their care. I mean, totally different topic, but there's much pressure in that way for teachers, but it's nothing compared to the pressure on the students. So these days, having been teaching for 31 years, just to see the amount of pressure my students are in, like to get the ACT score they want, not need, but want to get into college, to get the scholarship, to whatever. And they want to make that straight A's, or even, A's in AP classes, so they'll have more than a 4.0 GPA, and just the way they approach it. And I mean, it's just all about, if I don't get 100% on every test, something's wrong with me, and it just absolutely just weighs them down. You can feel the stress on the kids in the room. It's overwhelming.
And it's not just the ACT scores they want, it's what they've been told that they need. It's what they've been made to feel like they need. And of course these things do matter in a way. They are important. You should try on your ACT.
Yeah, I'm not saying that, right.
Right, I know exactly what you're saying, but people have been, I've always, even while I was in high school, I had sort of this thought. I had a pretty good ACT score. I had a 26. So that's pretty good. So I didn't really have to worry about it. But there were people that I knew that would get the same score as me or higher, and they were having panic attacks because it wasn't the highest possible score. And I'm like, whoa, man, what's the problem? Or people who had lower scores than me, I would say, hey, just relax. And they would say, you don't get to talk like that because you have a high score, so you don't understand what it's like. And I mean, I guess they're right, because I never put myself under that pressure really, because I've always just been really laid back about school and everything like that. I've always known, what's the worst that's going to happen? Am I going to end up in a box? But also, I've always been very good at high school. In high school, I was very much able to just sort of go with the flow and get through it. And I had to try in math, and that was kind of it. Everything else, I kind of could
Coast.
I could kind of coast through. But a lot of students, they either they just don't have that sort of mentality of being able to coast through, or they could coast through, but they don't want to coast through. They want to get the peak. And I think the reason they want to get the peak is because, it's not all bad wanting to be successful in school.
Correct.
But it becomes bad whenever I see it starts harming them as a person.
I agree. because like there are kids who through elementary school straight A's, they have it straight A's all the way through. They get to ninth grade in our school system. Ninth grade is a separate school, straight A's. They come to 10th grade, take an AP class, get a B, end of the world. I mean, that's just so awful to make people feel like there's something wrong with them because they make a B. I mean, well, we had that in our play. You know, she made a B.
Oh yeah, that was a whole character about that.
When we
right.
wrote Dinky Springs, that just absolutely hurts my heart because I mean it just makes the kid feel like there's something wrong with him or her. I mean, nobody can be perfect, and you know, in this world, the way we have things set up, somebody could get on YouTube at 10 years old and make $1 million. It happens. You know what I'm saying? There are many, many, many paths and options for people to be able to make a living. Going to college is not the be all end all. And, you know, as I'm sure we've said on the podcast before, now we're suffering because so many people are going to college. They don't have enough people to do the blue collar jobs. We don't have enough plumbers and electricians and all of the other things that we need for construction and maintenance. And all of that is extremely important. They're good paying jobs. They're honorable jobs. There's nothing, you know, wrong with being any of that. But for some reason, people think that you got to go to college and be a doctor or be a lawyer. And then the people who do that, we've glutted that market and they're miserable. And it's just such an awful cycle all the way around. But go ahead. I want to come back to stress, but you go ahead.
Well, this is about stress.
Okay.
I see just in life in general, I see so many miserable people. Everybody's always miserable.
Yes,
everywhere you go, everything that you see, it doesn't matter who's successful. I mean, people who are the most successful people in the world commit suicide every year. And it's because you realize that these things that you thought were so important in the end aren't nearly as important as you think, and the stress builds up on you to keep being that way the whole time and to stay on top, and it's all about being first. That's a big thing I've seen too with a lot of students. I remember like the first day of lunch in my 10th grade year, I sat next to these people that I kind of knew, and they were talking about like being valedictorian. They're like, yeah, I've been working towards valedictorian since 3rd grade. I'm like, oh, since 3rd grade. So you had the what? Like, okay, so since 3rd grade you've had that pressure on yourself to be the valedictorian. Guess what? She wasn't. And I mean, good for her if she would have been, but like, wow, like that's what you're talking about at the first day of
10th grade.
10th
well,
grade?
It's probably the first day of every school year, you know,
right,
reach that goal.
And it's like, how, and everything in their life revolves around like, how can I get to that goal? And I'm like, you know, high school isn't the end all be all. College isn't the end all be all.
Right.
I'd always have to say like, you know, there's always going to be the next thing. And the numbers, once you get away from it some, like, does it really, it's a test. It is a test that gives you a number, and that number will determine scholarships for college and maybe some colleges you can get into. But if you can't get into the one you want to go to, I'm sorry, that's horrible, but there's other paths, there's other options. It is not the end all be all.
Correct. And your life is not worth less because you didn't achieve that specific goal.
That's exactly the problem there. Like, it's okay to have these goals and to want to be that successful. Nothing is wrong with wanting that for yourself and for becoming that. But what you need to understand is that your life is not worth less just because you had a worse score on your ACT.
Or you didn't achieve a perfect score.
You didn't achieve a perfect score, right.
Yeah.
Or like the value of you as a person is not equal to the number on your ACT score. If I got a 26 and you got a 25, I'm not automatically a better person than you. I may have like gotten a better test grade than you, but people will start equating that to he's going to be more successful. He's going to be happier, which is not always the case at all.
No.
He's going to be happier and less stressed, which is not true.
Right.
That's the problem where they start building up and equating it to all these things more than what it is, which is just, it's a test, it's a number that gets you into a college.
And it's a test that could be, you know, disputed. I mean, who's to say that this is the test that determines that? I mean, all tests are subjective, so you can't even rely on that as a reliable anything.
It's not reliable.
You know?
Especially when you take when there's courses that are all about, there are courses at our school that are all about how can you like basically BS the test and just follow the formula that you know is going to be there. It's not even about, I knew somebody who took the test, had a 16. By the end of high school, they had a 21. Did they suddenly get that much smarter within 2 years? No, they studied how the test works.
Yeah, how to hack the test.
How to hack the test.
Right.
And that's a course they teach.
I know.
And they equate that to basically like, and that's something that they support is like, your intelligence apparently equals how well you can hack the test.
Absolutely.
That's not the case at all.
No.
That does not.
No. That again, back to the school system thing, which could be another whole hour on another day. But I wanted to come back to something you said about value as a person. So, and also the thing you said about turning the world into my classroom. So my whole goal in my classroom is to make each person feel valuable. And even when I taught the high stress subject that could be, or that could have been English, I still tried to make it to where I did do what I was asked. I covered what I was supposed to cover. I gave the test I was supposed to give. I made sure my students did know how to hack tests as far as I could give them like test tips and practice tests and whatever. But above and beyond that, I did my thing, which was try to make each person see that whatever their creative outlet is how they learn. So we always would read literature, but then people would have the choice to either write about it, draw about it, create a rap about it, act about it, whatever, to relate to it in some way, because it showed them, in my opinion, that whatever their talents or interests were could be relatable to the new content. And in my opinion, that is what makes people learn anything. And so I've said in every class I've ever taught that I would like my classroom to be a place where you can walk in the door and just breathe a sigh of relief, especially in my electives. But I tried to create that. I mean, you were in my English class. Did you feel that way in English as well?
100%.
Okay, good. So my overall point is you are a human being and I value you as a person. And of course, as a teacher, that is not every teacher's viewpoint at all. So I do try to get that across, that I value you as a human being and that I'm here to enhance you. And if that is something I can do through your knowledge of literature, or because I just tell you that I love your art, or because you just sit in my room and I come pat on your shoulder when I see you're sad, or whatever, I try to show students that they have value. But as I've mentioned before also, it is so meaningful to me that people that I teach will just have a bad minute and ask to come to my room so they can calm down. They just want to be in my classroom, in my presence, to just feel the acceptance that I offer and to feel the vibes, the good vibes. That specifically is what one of my students said. I need some good vibes. I just need to come here and get some good vibes. And he didn't even have that class that hour. He just wanted to be in that space. So it has always been my goal to create that space in a way that does teach, because I can now talk about electives. Like right now I'm teaching a law studies class that I honestly don't know anything about except how to teach from a textbook. But I do try to read ahead and pull in activities that I find interesting so that I am teaching something. But other than that, it's like, hey, this is our class and let's talk to each other and, create a community. But of course, my true passion is what we're going to be talking about extensively, by the way, in our creative conversation that we're going to record next. And that's theater and performance, and getting people to express themselves through all the different venues that there are, or maybe not venues is not the word, the different categories of expression. You can write, you can act, you can sing, dance, direct, all these different things. And in that class, we just truly become a family. This is the way I've heard my students describe it. We just get so close to each other because we're honoring each other's talents, but then working together toward the goal. And to me, that means more to me than any test score.
And you can take away so much from that as you get further in life. That's the thing that's going to stick with you, because life does not, there's so much more left to live. You will spend more time in your life outside of school than you will inside of school, but people don't think that way at all. And
they don't.
And I always say, in 20 years, is that freaking number gonna matter?
Right.
And you're more than just a number. And, you were talking about how you give your students tips to get through the test. The thing is, that's the way they teach now. It's not like you're doing something wrong. That's how they how the curriculum, the stuff that you're given, wants you to teach.
That's what I'm supposed to do.
It doesn't want you to stick it in their minds of actually how can they learn it. It's like, how can we get their numbers higher? Because it's all about the numbers.
Yes,
it's about getting the test scores higher, so that way the school's numbers are higher, and the curriculum is completely built around getting numbers to go up. And it's
sad. It's the wrong focus all the way around.
And I have learned so much. I had English in your class in my senior year. I cannot remember. I remember we read Of Mice and Men in my 11th grade English class. We read The Crucible. I cannot tell you anything about The Crucible. I mean, I know like basics, but like I don't remember the plot to The Crucible. We did Othello in your class, and I remember everything about that frickin' play because we were able to make a video on it. And so me and my friends did. We made a video. So now I can think back like what happened in that video. And now I know. And when we read The Tempest, and me and Juan and Tara made like a whole comic book about it, basically. And because Tara's an incredible artist, so she was able to draw that stuff. And I remember everything about The Tempest. And then that's where I really learned about clowns in Shakespeare and literature, like what a clown meant, which I'm sure I'd learned about before. But it didn't stick with me. I didn't remember it. You will learn more through the ways that you teach. And, you know, maybe the way that you teach to some teachers may be more difficult to do.
Maybe.
It takes more effort and it's more time consuming. And there's so many students. And you know what? I don't try to hold it against teachers who don't teach exactly like you, because there are so many students and all of them come through and you teach for so many years. And I totally understand why somebody might start as a teacher thinking every single student is gonna be like so much more, but they can lose that, and that's fair enough. You know what? There's so many students, but somehow you've managed to not lose that mentality, even though you've been teaching so long that you are going to retire soon.
Right. You
still don't have that mentality, and you're still and imbuing that into students that you care so much. And so I try to think, like, how can we fix that? And I think it all comes down to if the curriculum wasn't built around numbers, and the teachers are judged by numbers too.
Yes.
And you have the understanding to, like, if you get a bad number, you're going to be like, well, I know that I'm not a bad person, so I know what I'm doing is good. But a lot of teachers don't think that way. They're going to think, oh no, my score's down. Mm-hmm. What am I going to do? I'm a horrible teacher, when you're not. So then when everything's built around numbers, that's why the teachers start becoming that way. And that's why, and that's why people are so miserable. Teachers are so miserable.
Many of them are.
Many teachers are so miserable because they're so stressed out all the time. It's one of the most stressful jobs in the world for so many different teachers, and it's all because everything's built around being a number.
Right.
Not just the students, the teachers are numbers, and then the schools are numbers, meaning the principals are numbers, and to somebody, everybody's a number. But you have to understand that that's one person that you're a number to. But if there are more people who see you as a person than a number, then things can start to change.
I agree, and I'll just jump in and say that it's the other side is, how can you evaluate if you're doing your job if there's no data? It's all about data. The numbers and everything else is data. And my argument to that is, teaching a person is not quantifiable. It's not. And so if I sat down with you and tried to help you work through learning something, for example, like how to write a poem, it would be teaching. If I do it in front of 30 students, I am a teacher, but I'm only truly teaching when I can come around and help the individual person, because they can listen to me talk, they can whatever. But teaching is a one-on-one thing. It just is. And so however it got to be a one person in front of 32, which is how all my law classes are this semester. I have 32 students, and all 4 of them, and my theater classes, all 3 of them have almost 30. So I teach a huge number of people every day, and like you said, I do try to care about each one. I can't say each one gets the same attention, but I do care, and I hope that they all know that I care. That is my main concern. But the idea of let's do something other than worry about numbers leads people to say, okay, well, then how are you going to show or hold people accountable and make sure they're doing their job? I don't think there is an easy answer to that. But what I do know is from the time I've started teaching till now, seeing the shift be all about numbers, all about data, has taken away the human factor, like you were just saying. We see them as a number, not a person. And in my opinion, that would be something I would love to see change.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, we're about to wrap up now, but I just really, what I really want to get through in this podcast and state clearly is that if you are in high school and you're stressed about the numbers, take it from somebody who has gotten through high school and has been in college but decided to leave college, and from a teacher who went through all of high school, went through all of college, has been teaching. Take it from us that everything's going to be fine.
Yes.
If you don't, it's not all about that score or that number or that college. Like
GPA.
There
is
like all
more
these,
to you than that.
There is more to you than that, and you're going to be out of high school one day, and you're going to be out of college one day. And truthfully, anything you want to do, there's a path to get there.
Yes. Many paths.
Many paths to get there. And ask yourself what it is you truly want to do. And do you want to do that because you truly want to do that, or because that's what people with high numbers do?
Right.
And it's okay to want to have good scores on things. Definitely, I'm not saying just don't try.
For the best.
Strive for the best, but don't break yourself.
Yeah, don't devalue yourself.
Don't devalue yourself. You are more than a number,
yes.
And everything's going to be fine.
Everything's going to be all right.
And one day you're going to be out of school. And ask yourself, in 20 years, is your GPA going to... Are you even going to remember what your GPA was?
Right. So that is our message today. So stay positive through whatever things come your way, because it might seem horrible in the moment, but there is a way to look at it and deal with it and move on and find the positive path.
That's right. There's always a way. There's always a path.
There is.
And try to find the most positive one.
Right. So I guess we'll wrap it up now. So I guess I'll say thank you for listening to us. This has been Positive Conversations with David and Donna. Thank you for listening.
Stay positive.